You are being controlled or you are the one controlling. There is no middle ground. Look at the reality straight on. Your life today is not a series of conscious choices as you might think. It is the result of unconscious reactions, repetitive habits formed not by intention but by convenience, emotions, and the influence of your surroundings. You don't actually choose how you start your day, how you respond to pressure, or how you end your evening. Most of the time you're just repeating what's familiar, easy, and low risk. And that's how you become the one being controlled. You think you're in control of your time, but in reality, time is passing according to someone else's plan. You think you're making decisions, but in reality, you're reacting to phone notifications, sudden emails, conversations you don't decline, and urgent tasks that have nothing to do with your goals. You are living in the way the outside world wants you to, not the way you designed. And it's right at that point, when you stop making proactive decisions and start living reactively, that you lose your greatest power, the power to control yourself. It may sound serious, because it is. No one tells you this clearly, but everything around you is designed to steal your attention. Social media, emails, ads, trivial conversations. They don't just keep you busy, they leave you empty. Empty because you think you're living, but in reality you're just being led, swept away by things you didn't choose. You become an employee of your own time, working without pay. You feel like you're busy all day but still not moving forward. It's not because you're lazy, it's because you're not in the driver's seat. You're sitting in the passenger seat of your own life, watching everything rush by at a dizzying speed, but you don't know where you're going, and you can't stop. You wake up every morning, dive into work, calls, messages, without a single minute of true awareness to ask yourself, what am I living for today? As long as you keep living reactively, you cannot change your trajectory. Reacting is survival mode. You're always being pushed backward, always feeling you don't have enough time, enough motivation, enough results. But when you start to actively choose every hour of your day, you no longer live in survival mode. You begin to live like a system designer. You reset the parameters. You decide when to say no, when to disconnect, when to do deep work, when to recharge. And most importantly, you start making the right choices before life forces you to pay for the wrong ones. Sounds idealistic? No, it's mandatory if you want to live a purposeful life. Because the brutal truth is, if you don't proactively create results, you'll be forced to accept the results of others. If you don't control time, others will use it to build their dreams. If you don't control yourself, you'll be controlled by others. Gently, quietly, but incredibly effectively. The question is not, do you want to control your life? Because no one will answer no. The real question is, are you awake enough to realize that right now you're not controlling anything? And are you committed enough to change that? Because every major change starts with an unpleasant truth, and the truth here is, either you control yourself or you're controlled by everything else. There's no middle ground, no gray area, no temporary. It's either action or drifting. Choose a side. You don't need to change your whole life in one night. You just need to change one reflex, one way of thinking, one single choice, but you have to do it absolutely. And that's why the people who go the farthest always start with something very small, but they do it right, they do it thoroughly, and they don't compromise. They don't try to do everything. They don't set 10 goals at once. They simply choose one habit, and they make it the pivot point of their entire life. The right habit, when done continuously with high intensity, will create a ripple effect that changes every other aspect of your life. From how you use your time, to how you think, to the standards you set for yourself. But what's important is not which habit you choose. What's important is the decision you make afterward. Will you truly commit to it? Because most people don't lack knowledge, opportunity, or methods. They just lack a clear decision. From today, I will not back down. I will not wait anymore. I will not do this when I have time. I will act whether I feel like it or not, whether I have motivation or not. Change doesn't need much. It just needs one anchor point. One habit that makes you different, not just from others, but from your previous self. It could be that you start waking up on time and don't touch your phone in the first 60 minutes of the day. It could be the habit of writing down the 3 most important things to accomplish before going to bed. It could be the decision to never let someone else schedule things for you without a good reason. Just one change, but done seriously as if your life depends on it, because, in fact, it does. Most people underestimate the power of just one habit. They think, what can one small action change? But what they don't understand is you're not changing one action, you're changing your identity. You're rebuilding the internal operating system. And when you perform one small action with absolute commitment, you send an incredibly powerful signal to your brain. I am the kind of person who does this, whether anyone sees it or not, whether there's an immediate result or not. I still do it because it's my standard. That seemingly small decision, when repeated every day, not only creates noticeable results, but also begins to reshape your identity. You start rejecting things that no longer align. You automatically avoid meaningless conversations. You no longer need reminders. You become self-sufficient. And when that self-sufficiency reaches a stable level, you begin to act like someone who has gone farther than the person you were 6 months ago. No one notices that process happening. But you know. You feel the smallest change. You see how you react differently, how you decide faster, how you no longer struggle with the things that used to make you procrastinate. Others call it discipline, but, it's just the result of a decision that has been made, an unwavering commitment, a habit that you won't let anyone, not even yourself, interfere with. And here's the key point. You don't need to wait until it's perfect to start. You don't need a detailed schedule, new tools, or an ideal environment. You just need to ask yourself, what if I do it consistently every day will have the power to push my entire life forward? Then you act. No negotiating, no procrastination, no turning back. One habit, one decision, but when you carry it out with full willpower, it's no longer a small thing. It's a complete transformation. Success doesn't come from rare opportunities, but from how you use every hour of the day. Most people don't fail because of a lack of talent, but because they don't control their time. They let it slip away through each notification, each unnecessary conversation, each seemingly harmless minute of procrastination. And then they wonder why they always feel busy but never get anywhere. But the truth is clear. Whoever controls their time controls the game. There's nothing more valuable than time because it's the one thing you can't recreate. Every day you are given 24 hours just like everyone else. But the difference lies in how you use them. Ordinary people waste time reacting. They let others send them tasks, let circumstances dictate their emotions, let the outside world decide their internal schedule. Meanwhile, those in control choose to live proactively. They plan ahead, block time for important tasks, and protect their schedule with iron discipline. They don't need to seem busy because they are efficient. Mastering time doesn't mean cramming everything into your schedule. It means you know exactly what deserves to appear in your day. You no longer let others decide what's urgent or important. You design your own pace, not allowing external factors to disrupt your thinking. Every hour of your day becomes a declaration. Every decision you make about how you use your time is a statement of the value you place on your life. When you control time, the first thing that happens is not achievement, it's an internal change. You begin to notice the difference in your perception. You are no longer living reactively. You feel like you are the one steering the wheel. That feeling, though abstract, carries immense power. It makes you stronger against temptation, more resolute in the face of obstacles, and calmer when everything around you becomes chaotic. Because you are no longer being pulled by things you don't control. You have mastered the most essential thing, time. People often ask, how do you achieve freedom? The answer doesn't lie in finances or fame. It starts with owning your time. When you proactively decide what to do, when to do it, with whom, and for what purpose, that's when you break free from the shackles of modern life. You are no longer a victim of your schedule. You become the one who writes it. And here's the key point. Every choice in your life is connected to time. How you use your time will determine what you learn, what you build, which relationships you maintain, what skills you develop, and more importantly, who you become. Destiny isn't something that falls from the sky. It's built from each minute you control. Let me make this clear. Time is the most basic unit of destiny. Anyone who wastes time is automatically giving up the opportunity to shape their life. Every action you delay, every time you let emotions guide you, every time you react instead of taking action, you're not just losing time, you're gradually losing your ability to control your fate. So if you truly want to change, don't look too far. Look at how you're spending today. Are you busy blindly? Or are you working with clear goals? Are you being dragged by urgent but meaningless things? or are you prioritizing what has long-term value? Just look at your schedule and you'll know whose trajectory you're living on, the reactive person or the leader. Destiny is not written in advance. It is formed from a series of intentional actions carefully programmed into each hour of today, and you are the one writing it, line by the way you choose to use your time. Waiting for inspiration to start is a trap, and most people fall into it without even realizing. They wait until they feel motivated to write, work, exercise, or start an important project, but they don't realize that waiting for emotions is the reason they never achieve real results. Because emotions are unstable. They change with the weather, your mood, a sudden phone call, or a random comment. You can't let your success depend on something so fragile. Winners understand this better than anyone. Action is what leads the way. Emotion comes later, if at all. The nature of discipline is not rigidity, but the ability to rise above temporary emotions to keep your commitment to yourself. Outstanding people don't always want to start, but they start even when they don't feel like it. They understand that emotions are temporary while results are permanent. One day you feel motivated doesn't mean you're progressing, but one day when you're tired, uninspired, and still accomplish what you committed to, that's when you truly grow stronger. Action doesn't need to be sparked by inspiration, it needs to be sparked by a decision. And once you've developed the habit of acting regardless of your emotions, you become dangerous in a very quiet way, because while others are still waiting for a signal to start, you are already in the middle of the journey. While others are still hesitating, you have results. While they search for reasons to delay, you are finding ways to continue. Ordinary people live by emotions. Extraordinary people live by standards. Emotion says, I'm tired today, I'll do it tomorrow. Standards say, the schedule is set, no changes. Emotion says, I'm not interested. Standards respond, you don't need to be interested to do something valuable. Emotions always have a reason, but standards produce results. And the truth is, life doesn't reward you for how you feel. It only responds to the actions you take. Every time you rise above emotions and still take action, you are training your internal nerves, turning difficulty into reflex, turning reflex into habit, and turning habit into a new identity. You no longer have to motivate yourself every day. Because you no longer live by emotions day by day, you live by a system with clear goals, principles of action, and the ability to resist drifting. Take a look back. How many important things in your life have been delayed just because you didn't feel ready? How many opportunities have slipped by just because you thought, I can do it later? And how many times have you told yourself, I need more motivation, only for everything to stay stagnant? The answer is often uncomfortable, but it's very clear. You don't need better feelings. You need to take action despite how you feel. And when you do this enough, you'll discover something surprising. Action creates emotion, not the other way around. You start out unmotivated, but after 10 minutes of deep work, your mind is pulled back to the present. After 30 minutes, you feel the progress, and by the end, not only have you finished the task, you feel stronger, clearer, more confident. That is the reward that's never given to those waiting for inspiration to knock. Nothing happens until you get started. No results, no changes, no breakthroughs, just unfinished ideas, abandoned plans, and a version of yourself that never rises. You can know all the methods, learn all the strategies, read all the books, but if you don't start, even when you feel nothing, you will just remain stuck in knowledge without ever moving into results. Success doesn't care what your mood is in the morning. It cares about whether you do the right thing consistently, regularly, without compromise. That's how great people build careers, habits, and lives that others think are impossible. Not because they're always more motivated than you, but because they start while you're still waiting for emotions to change. Not everyone who's running is moving forward. A packed schedule doesn't mean your life is advancing. We live in an era where busy is admired as a badge of honor. People boast that they have no time, that they work late into the night, that they have to handle dozens of tasks every day. But the harsh truth is, being busy does not equate to being effective, and not every movement leads to progress. You can keep moving in circles without ever leaving the starting line. Effectiveness doesn't lie in the number of tasks you touch, it lies in the quality of the actions you take. Those tasks that if not done will cause the entire system to collapse. Everything else, even if it keeps you busy all day, is just noise. These are the non-urgent emails, pointless meetings, and to-do lists that give you a false sense of accomplishment, but don't bring you any closer to significant goals. they create an illusion of productivity. But the truth is, you're trading energy for the feeling of, I'm doing something, rather than actually creating results. Aimless movement is a form of subtle procrastination. Instead of bravely facing the most important task, the difficult, complex, strategic task, you choose to do easy, quick, repetitive tasks just because they give you the sense of completion. But what you need is not to say, I've done something, but to get closer to what you really want. Be honest with yourself. How many of the things you do today actually make a difference? How many tasks, if not done, would have no impact on the future you're building? And how many hours have you spent just to maintain the feeling that you're working? You cannot measure progress by the number of tasks you're busy handling. You must measure it by how close you are to your goal. The truth is, effectiveness doesn't come from doing more, it comes from doing the right things. One action in the right direction, done consistently, can yield results 10 times greater than 10 actions that go in the wrong direction. That's why the people who achieve the greatest results often have the most minimalist schedules. They aren't distracted by things that seem important. They spend their energy on what truly determines the outcome. Proactive people don't start their day with a long list. They start with a question. If I could only do 3 things today, which 3 would produce the biggest results? And once they identify those, they block time for them, protecting that time as if it's the most important meeting of their life. Because it really is. They don't let the urgent interfere with the important. They don't let reaction replace proactivity. They don't run around trying to keep pace. They only run when they know exactly where they're going. Meanwhile, busy people always react. They reply to messages immediately, attend every meeting they're invited to, do plenty of things but never finish anything. They live in a state of energy chaos, always rushing, always out of time, always feeling like they're chasing something, but can't describe exactly what it is. That feeling of being busy, if not identified and corrected, will become a vicious, endless loop. And at some point they'll look back and realize they've gone off course just because they never stopped long enough to ask the right questions, things like that. So what you need is not more time. You need clarity. You need to know what's essential and what's noise. You need the courage to eliminate the things that make you feel busy but don't help you move forward. You need to embrace the initial discomfort of saying no to things that seem necessary but actually don't serve anything important. And you need to ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now truly taking me where I want to go? Or am I just moving to avoid the feeling of standing still? When you begin to distinguish between being busy and being effective, you'll see the magic. Time seems to stretch out. You no longer feel swept away. You no longer end your day exhausted with no idea of what you've accomplished. You start to feel proactive, focused, and on track. You begin to feel that finally, every action you take is contributing to building something meaningful. You don't need to do more than others to move faster. You just need to be distracted less. In a world where your attention is the most sought-after asset, your ability to stay focused is not just a skill, it's the biggest competitive advantage. Look around, everyone is multitasking. Everyone is working while checking their phone. Everyone lets notifications interrupt every minute of deep work. And the generation feels constantly busy, yet progress is slow. Because it's not that you lack time, you're just letting distractions steal it, hour by hour. Each time you break your work rhythm to check a message, you're not just losing 30 seconds, you're disrupting your focus, silently pulling your mental performance down. Every time you work while browsing the web, you're teaching your brain that it's not necessary to complete tasks, it's not necessary to be consistent, just feeling busy is enough. And if that repeats enough times, you will lose the ability to work deeply, the only thing that can truly help you create real value in this noisy world. Distraction is not just a destroyer of productivity, it's a subtle thief. It doesn't appear with a warning, it quietly sneaks into your daily routine pretending to be harmless. But its consequences are thorough. It makes you think you can do both, work and text, study and check email, write and listen to a podcast. But the human brain was not designed to multitask effectively. Every time you switch between tasks, you lose momentum. And if you do this all day, you don't progress. You just spin in circles. You can't run fast if you keep stopping. Similarly, you can't make progress if you don't give yourself enough time to deeply focus on what you're doing. Great things are built in uninterrupted spaces. Valuable ideas are born from focused silence. And every breakthrough in your life will only happen when you truly allow yourself to disappear from the noise of the world. So, if you feel like you're moving slowly, don't blame yourself for not putting in enough effort. Ask yourself, what am I allowing to interrupt my focus? Maybe it's the phone you keep right next to you while working. Maybe it's the email inbox you always leave open alongside your tasks. Maybe it's the habit of reflexively opening social media whenever you feel bored. All those things, though small, are leaks in your energy reservoir. Every bit of distraction you allow will create a small cut in your focus. And when accumulated, it drains you without you realizing why. The people who create the greatest results aren't necessarily the most skilled. They are the ones least interrupted. They know that when you're doing deep work, there's no room for notifications. When you're writing an important idea, there's no time to scroll through stories. When you're designing something truly important for your life, you need a space free from outside signals. And they create that space. They turn off notifications. They put their phones in another room. They block deep work hours and protect them like they're the most important meeting of their life. Because in reality they are. They don't let urgency interfere with importance. They don't let reaction replace productivity. They don't run around to keep pace. They only run when they know exactly where they're going. Meanwhile, busy people always react. They answer messages immediately, attend every meeting they're invited to, do plenty of things but never finish anything. They live in a state of energy chaos, always rushing, always out of time, always feeling like they're chasing something but can't describe exactly what it is. That feeling of being busy, if not identified and corrected, will become a vicious, endless loop. And at some point they'll look back and realize they've gone off course just because they never stopped long enough to ask the right questions. So what you need is not more time. You need clarity. You need to know what's important and what's noise. You need the courage to eliminate the things that make you feel busy but don't help you move forward. You need to embrace the initial discomfort of saying no to things that seem necessary but actually don't serve anything important. And you need to ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now really taking me where I want to go? Or am I just moving to avoid the feeling of standing still? When you start to distinguish between being busy and being effective, you'll see the magic. Time seems to stretch out. You no longer feel swept away. You no longer end your day exhausted with no idea of what you've accomplished. You start to feel proactive, focused, and on track. You begin to feel that, finally, every action you take is contributing to building something meaningful. You can have a great day, an energetic morning, an explosive week at work, but if you then let everything fall back into the old rhythm, the change will pass like smoke, arriving quickly and disappearing even faster. What creates a different life is not the bright moments, but the disciplined repetition of the right actions, even when you have no inspiration. Real change doesn't happen on the day you feel full of motivation. It happens on the day you're exhausted, discouraged, wanting to stop and still continue. That's why I don't believe in short-term emotions. I believe in systems. I believe in unwavering living standards regardless of circumstances, because if you only act when you feel inspired, you'll always live in a loop. Impulsive, excited, tired, give up, guilt, start again. And you'll think you're trying, while in reality, you're just spinning in circles. Set a goal. 90 days. No compromises, no negotiations, no take a break today and catch up later. No too busy, let's do it tomorrow. 90 days with a simple commitment every day. Act according to the highest standard you can achieve in the present circumstances. No need for perfection, just consistency. Those 90 days will not only change your external results, but will reset your internal operating system, where discipline becomes reflex and reflex becomes identity. Does this sound rigid? No. In fact, this is the only way for you to break free from dependence on emotions. Because true freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you feel like. It comes from the ability to do what's right, even when you don't feel like it. When you keep your commitment to yourself consistently for 90 days, you'll witness something amazing. Your energy increases, your focus sharpens, your self-esteem is rebuilt layer by layer, and results start appearing effortlessly. No one can change their life with just one excellent day of work, but if you can maintain the right actions, repeating them for 3 months, you won't be the same person anymore. Your thoughts will change, how you respond to pressure will change, Your tolerance for discomfort will also change. You become a version of yourself that no longer relies on inspiration, but operates on a stable system. And when you reach that state, you no longer need to try to focus. You've become someone who is always focused. True change doesn't happen in applause, it happens in silence. At 6 a.m. when you wake up on time, even though you slept late last night. In the evening when you finish your work, even though no one is pushing you. On the weekend when you refuse an unnecessary meeting to protect deep work hours. There's no spotlight on those moments, but they are the foundation for everything you want to build. And if you can't build a habit of uncompromising work in 90 days, you'll forever depend on something too fragile, emotion. You need to understand this. Every great achievement you admire is built from small but repeated actions with high intensity and no interruption. No one succeeds due to inspiration. Everyone succeeds because of systems. And systems only work when you stop negotiating with yourself every day and start acting as if there are no other options. You don't need to start perfectly, you just need to start. And never stop. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed before. If you start tomorrow and stay committed for the next 90 days, everything could become unrecognizable. Your habits, energy, decision-making, confidence, results, everything will change. But only if you dare to step across the fragile line between doing well today and I will do well every day, no exceptions. Stop searching for magic, stop waiting for inspiration, build a system, live as if there is no turning back. Because when you have the courage to live like this for 90 days, you will never return to the old version of yourself, not because you don't want to, but because you are no longer that person. No one wakes up in the morning and decides, today I will live aimlessly, but many people still do. They don't say it out loud, but their actions speak for them. Waking up without a plan, starting the day by checking social media, handling urgent tasks instead of important ones, letting messages, emotions, and circumstances decide their direction. And as a result, they end the day tired, scattered, but without really knowing what they've accomplished. They're not lazy, they just haven't chosen a side. Because every morning is not just a time to start over, it's a moment where you must make a life or death decision. Will you control time today or let it slip by according to the old routine? Will you lead each hour proactively or react to whatever suddenly happens? Will you act according to your set goals or let the outside world decide what needs you first? There's no gray area between controlling and drifting. One of these is happening. Either you design your day or you're living according to someone else's design. The danger is that drifting often disguises itself under the cloak of busy. You think you're working, but when you look back, you realize you're just caught up in what arises. You react to the first email, the first message, the first call, and just like that, you hand over the reins of the day to anyone who touches your schedule before you. That's not proactivity, that's relinquishing control. Mastery doesn't necessarily require a perfect plan. It just requires you to start the day with awareness. I will decide what's important. I will block time for it. I will protect my energy from distractions. I will not let anyone else enter my priority zone unless it's truly necessary. Successful people don't live reactively. They decide before they begin. They set the framework before the world can interfere. They know an hour of controlled morning is the foundation for a productive day. Look back at the mornings when you truly felt progress. Not the mornings when you were most inspired, but the mornings when you took full control. No phone, no email, no jumping into urgent tasks. Just a quiet space, a clear goal, and a deep flow of thought. And you know that it didn't come from luck, it came from one decision. You are no longer drifting. Drifting is the brain's natural tendency, choosing the easy tasks, reacting quickly, avoiding what's important, procrastinating on things that don't give immediate results, and if you don't choose otherwise, you'll live in that default mode forever. Change starts with a different choice. Instead of letting the new day lead you, you set it up beforehand. Even if it's just 10 minutes of reflection, writing down the top 3 priorities, turning off notifications, blocking time, a small action but a declaration that you are the one in control, that you don't need reminders, that you don't need a reason to do the right thing. And the strange thing is, when you start the day with a proactive mindset, the rest of the day follows. You make clearer decisions, handle tasks more decisively, say no more easily, and most importantly, you maintain inner order amidst the chaotic external world. Every day you will be tested again. Today, will you control it or be pulled along? The answer doesn't lie in a grand plan, but in the first 30 minutes of your day. Do you use that time to set yourself up, or let someone else take your priority away? Do you start with what's important, or do you let urgent matters take over? These questions may seem small, but they are the leverage. They define how you will live, drifting with the current, or creating your own flow. Remember, control is not about managing everything. Control is about knowing what matters most and protecting it from everything else. And that always starts with one small decision, repeated every morning, the decision not to let today pass like yesterday. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not the support of others. The only thing that makes a person undefeatable is discipline. Discipline is not punishment, not coercion, not a rigid life without emotion. Discipline is the freedom you create for yourself when you're strong enough to keep your word to yourself. When you do what's right, even when no one is watching, even when you don't want to, even when your mind constantly looks for reasons to avoid it. Do you think exceptional people have extraordinary motivation? They don't. They just have such high living standards that they won't allow themselves to break them. Discipline doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from the decision. I will not accept anything less than what I've committed to. And the strange thing is, when you stick to that principle long enough, it's no longer a burden. It becomes an energy. Persistent, steady, unwavering. While others struggle with internal resistance every time they start, you simply take action. Because for a disciplined person, action doesn't require negotiation. There's no long inner dialogue about should I do this or not. There's no gray area between want to do and doing. There's only the task being done as a reflex of someone living by clear standards. And this becomes the foundation for internal stability. You're no longer pulled by fleeting emotions. You're no longer controlled by circumstances. You no longer have to depend on the outside world to fuel your inner motivation. You are the source. You are the one in control. Discipline is actually a system that protects your energy. It prevents you from wasting willpower on having to convince yourself every day to do what you know is necessary. It saves your mental energy for more important decisions. And that's why disciplined people are often lighter than you think. They don't struggle. They don't battle with themselves every morning. They simply start on time, on task, in the right spirit. You'll realize something. The days when you feel the most exhausted are not the days when you do the most work, but the days when you're at odds with yourself. The day you know you should do task A but choose to do task B. The day you plan to exercise but scroll through your phone for an hour instead. The day you plan to write a plan but let your inbox take over your morning. Every action that goes against what you know is right creates a subtle energy leak. You're not tired because you're working. You're tired because of the small betrayals to yourself. Discipline interrupts that chain of betrayal. It stops the loop of taking a break today, catching up tomorrow. It strips away the ability to procrastinate under the guise of reasons. It forces you to face one truth. Either you keep your word to yourself, or you let yourself slide, millimeter by millimeter, without realizing. And the interesting thing is, the more you maintain discipline, the lighter you feel, because you no longer have to make decisions about things that should become immutable principles. You no longer struggle with willpower every time you want to do something important. You don't need to ask yourself, should I continue today? You just do, as an inevitable part of your new identity. Highly disciplined people don't need supervision. They don't need deadlines chasing them. They self-manage. They live within a system they've designed themselves. And because of that, they have the freedom that emotional people will never touch. Freedom from distractions, freedom from hesitation, freedom from themselves. No one is born with discipline, but anyone can develop it. Start with small commitments, things that seem simple but are kept every day. Waking up on time, completing scheduled tasks, turning off your phone at the right time, saying no to things that don't align with your goals. These small actions not only create results, they build the person you become. They send a silent message to your brain. I am someone who keeps my word. I am someone trustworthy. I am someone who takes action even when things aren't ideal. And once you live with that message every day, you become someone undefeatable. Not because you are stronger than anyone else, but because you no longer have to fight with yourself. You don't need to change everything. You don't need to rewrite your entire life in one night. You just need to start with one simple commitment. But it must be a true commitment, meaning no backing down, no conditions, no compromises. A decision you make with clarity and awareness. From today, I take full responsibility for my time, energy, and results. No blaming circumstances, no making excuses for my mood, no waiting for another day to start doing what I know I should do. That commitment doesn't need to be declared publicly. It just needs to be quietly but consistently carried out in every small choice that others don't see. Choose to turn off your phone for 2 hours of deep work instead of browsing the web whenever you're bored. Choose to complete the task you've scheduled instead of leaving it for tomorrow. Choose to wake up according to your plan instead of hitting the snooze button for another 5 minutes. Small actions, but with great significance. You are resetting your internal operating system from a reactive state to a proactive one. When you truly commit, you no longer need to ask yourself every day, should I do this? Because the answer has already been decided. Commitment is liberation. It frees you from having to make repeated decisions for things that are already clear. It frees you from inner conflict, where you want to move forward but allow yourself to stop. And it frees you from things that no longer serve you with one simple principle. If it doesn't serve the goal, it doesn't get to exist in the system. Terrible. Change doesn't start with inspiration, it starts with courage. The courage to look at where you are standing and the courage to choose differently. The difference between someone who lives with direction and someone who always feels lost isn't knowledge, skills, or opportunities. It lies in one thing only. The ability to maintain discipline with yourself in the seemingly smallest things. No one sees you persevere in writing every morning, turning down unnecessary invitations, sitting down to complete work even when you're tired. But it's these things that build results, brick by brick, without rushing, without boasting. You will feel resistance. There will be days when you're tired, discouraged, lost. There will be times when you want to step back, want to take a break from everything. But you need to understand this. It's those times when you don't want to continue but still do. Those are the moments that create breakthroughs. Anyone can act when it's easy, but those who truly change are the ones who still take action when everything inside them wants to give up. It's at that moment that your commitment becomes your identity. And once you live by that identity long enough, everything around you will change, from how you think to how others perceive you to the results you create. It doesn't need to be complicated. A simple commitment, clear action, consistent standards. All you need is to live by the principle. Nothing is allowed to leak my time, energy, and focus without passing through the filter of my goal. And you repeat that every day. No inspiration needed, no praise required, just you, with the promise you've made. From today, you are no longer someone being led. You are the one who sets the system. Every choice is a line of code. Every hour of deep work is an update. Every action that eliminates distraction is a patch. And when you live like this long enough, you won't need to try to focus or be disciplined anymore. You become the new operating system. Faster, leaner, more effective. A version no longer influenced by external factors. No longer living in a state of waiting. No longer confused by meaningless things. A version that lives by design, not by reflex. A simple commitment, but executed thoroughly, and that's where all change begins.